Okay, good evening, everybody. Let's take a roll call vote. A roll call for the meeting.
President Katie Dugan.
President Corey Evans.
Present Chris Pleisch.
Present Francine Lyons.
Present Susan Franklin.
And yes, I need help on Zoom. I need help in all areas of my life currently. So
Okay, so I think we're waiting for, I think Ellen was going to join us tonight as well from the select board perspective. I don't know if she's on the school.
no, we can just leave her in the audience. It's fine. We can just
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I
we have Mark as well. Sorry. Go
Yeah,
ahead,
we do
sorry.
have Mark. So
Mark, let's leave Mark there. Let's see how we do and to see if we need Mark, if that's okay, just to keep it brief. Does anyone on the committee have any more fundamental questions about the scope of the project as we've heard it 4 times now? Or are we ready to just talk about the financial impact on our budget and our ability to pay?
I'm ready to talk about the financial impact on our budget and ability to pay. I assume everybody understood that the CPC voted $1.5 million. Did everyone read that?
So I did not realize they voted it.
Yes, they did. Sorry,
Okay.
Katie, if that
Okay.
wasn't clear in one of my updates. My
All right.
apologies. Yeah.
No.
Yeah,
Thank you, Susan. Like I knew they were considering the 1.5 million, and I knew they had the million from Holly Hill, and I knew they had capacity according to the numbers presented. So thank you. So the $1.5 million from CPC is been authorized.
Yep.
Great.
Mhm.
Okay, that's a huge win. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, during that meeting, our message basically was if CPC doesn't give us, produce the full 1.5, the chances of us affording to be able to do it just doesn't happen, right? We did the numbers here, and if we had to go into the $4.5 million range against capital stabilization, there'd be some really, really hard challenges that I don't think we'd be comfortable making really this round. So, but the presentation also reviewed, they had enough money to deal with this because of how the CPC's bucketed out. So yeah, they approved the full 1.5. So we did have a little bit of chicken and egg, which is okay. Well, if they do 1.5 in the capital budget, they hatched the egg, and now we can make a chicken, I guess would be the.
Corey. During the meeting, Corey was using a tiramisu cake as his analogy, and now it's a chicken that's been hatched.
Food motivated, apparently, yes.
I think I like the tiramisu analogy better.
Okay, so they're going to give us the, I don't know, coffee that goes inside and the brandy or whatever.
I don't know.
It's Kahlua, yeah.
So,
Yeah. So we just got to do the cake part. So I hope everyone had a chance to review Chris's note. It did, and there's a blurry Chris Sr. In real life, he's much more clear, I've been told. But so Chris, I mean, you're here. Do you want to go through the note, or do you want to wait for the committee to ask questions of you? I'm assuming everyone's read the note, has seen it.
Yep.
Since we have Chris here, let's do questions instead of re-presenting something we've already seen. Let's pepper Chris with some questions.
Well, I guess I see the debt capacity to accommodate the 4 million from the roll-off. But when I just go back to that example that we discussed at the select board, I think my biggest concern is just ongoing support and commitment for a 2.5% increase and a equitable conversation about free cash flow into capital stabilization going forward. Because if you sort of look at, next year with 493,000 of interest expense from, and it's not going to all hit next year, I understand that, on a $4 million encumbrance, that takes down our sort of remaining spending after some really simple essentials like bus leases, police cruisers, DPW, IT, down to $500,000 split between all the departments. And so without an increase and without a commitment to free cash flow, it's just the reality that we're not going to have a lot to spread between all the departments because we've made this commitment, which
Right.
I'm comfortable with, but I'd feel more comfortable if I understood sort of what the select board and the town manager were thinking about relative to future funding for capital budget.
So what I would say is that this is an anomalous year. I think we all understand the whys. Again, it's the school budget. If that was not sitting over our heads right now, we wouldn't be having this conversation because there'd be a lot more money in the capital budget and we would be paying down a chunk of this with free cash right now. It just, again, again, I'm sitting here today and this is, I mean, this is nothing more than just stating the obvious. I still don't know where we are for this year. And I've been working with the schools very closely. And which leaves me uncertain about next year, right? Just where we are. So this can't happen. I think everyone understands that. So, so in a normal year, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. So this is an anomalous year. I have every expectation that we'll return to our standard practice where, you know, the first place we put money is into one-time expenses like capital, right? Which is a critical investment. And that we would do it for projects, one-off projects, right? So we would be paying for maybe some segments of this town hall project, for example, with free cash segments. And I hope we get back to that in November. That's the hope, right? And if the schools come back to me with something, you know, more reasonable, maybe we'll have more money in the fall anyway than we thought. I mean, you know, and we'll start making those investments. The key is that we just need that $4 million authorization now. And again, we're not going to spend any of it until until the projects line up. And we're not going to spend any more of it than we need to. And I don't want to borrow any more of it than we have to. Right. So I would love to pay down any of it in advance with any cash that we have, whether it's from a turn back of another project or a closed out article, you know, or free cash. So does that kind of answer your question? I hope.
No, I think the commitment to not borrowing any more than we have to and being able to either use turnbacks or free cash to sort of limit that ultimate debt expenditure as it relates to town hall is helpful. Thank you.
Okay.
And Chris, just Katie began by talking about the 2.5% increase. I know we've talked about that in circles for a long time. What are you comfortable giving the committee at this moment about free cash or about capital stabilization going forward in the 2.5% addition?
Well, we've been able to do that, right? So we've
Okay.
done it now the last 2 years. So I think that's a sign of commitment, right? So no, and again, every year is its own world, right? That said, we've done it, and I think it needs to continue to be done because costs. I mean, just to keep ourselves level with costs, and so we'll continue to do that. That's the expectation because it's important to do.
Okay, and then historically, the free cash appropriation into the stabilization that's special, you gave me a number a couple months back. Historically, it's in the 100 and 150, 200 range. Is that typically historically what it's been? I'm not projecting forward, but just to kind of give us a little bit of back story as well.
It kind of depends. I mean, we've done years where we've thrown $500,000 into the fund where we're like, we have it, we need it, we're going to do it, right?
Right.
It really looks at, you know, it's kind of what's in the universe. If there's, you know, one-off projects that we can avoid with we can avoid capital entirely, right? We can just spend money on some preventative maintenance or stuff like that. We try to, you know, make those. We've been doing more of those kind of investments the last 5-6 years, which I think have kept us in a better place in terms of, you know, big repairs.
Yeah.
Town hall, unfortunately, was, you know, long standing. That was a different thing. So, but it's been like that with the senior center. It's been like that with some of our other buildings, even with the schools. Our facilities team has really done outstanding work staying ahead of things. And I was talking to Nick just the other day about the roof repair stuff, right? So I'm cautiously optimistic that we're going to be pleasantly surprised at the Osgood project. Again, we're in the MSBA path, so I'm comfortable about the extra funding and all that because of the proactive work that Nick has done and his team, that project may end up being less than we thought from a scope, because they may end up, you know, because of the work and the work that they're doing on all the other roofs are going to save us money and energy going forward too, so we can identify problems early. So as I say that, the goal is to, you know, again, the existing policies say, you know, we put things in the stabilization funds first. That's general, which we haven't had to put money into recently. It's the
Yep.
special ed stabilization fund as money's available. It's capital stabilization and it's open, right? So we're continuing to make those investments because there's a commitment and it's the right thing to do. So it's a win-win.
Thank you. Chris Peisch, not Chris Senior. This is your first kind of round with this. So I mean, Susan, myself, Francine and Katie, we've all heard this town hall thing. I don't know, it feels like 50 times now. So I mean, coming in fresh, I want to give you some space to ask any questions about financing or project scope that you've run into now, because again, we've all chewed through this many times already.
I'm okay so far, Corey.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
I did go into the roll forward that we had in the OneDrive. Michelle, I don't know if you can give me the ability to share a screen. I think it'd be helpful just for the committee to sort of see where we're at in terms of if we vote the ambulance, what our ending balance is going to look like.
Our sheet 76,994. Is that what over the $1 million?
Yep. Hold on.
Okay.
But the
1.076.
ambulance is- I don't think the ambulance is in at the new price yet. Didn't we get?
That was a second. That was a second bid, a higher bid.
Oh, okay, I see.
Yeah, that was just a cross shop. Yeah.
All right, so you guys should be able to see the roll forward. Do you see that? I'm sorry.
Yep.
Okay.
Looks good.
So this was just our estimated beginning balance for FY26 in column C. That's the 2.146 that is being appropriated to us out of free cash flow. Our repurposed articles is down to 220,000 now because we're obviously not counting on the roof savings because that's being applied against town hall renovations. We then have the new adjusted debt number, the 573,000, which includes the issuances that we had missed earlier for border and treats. And then the number there, that $2,023,006, that is all the appropriations that we've voted plus ambulance at $502,000. So that leaves us with a balance, if we do the ambulance and everything else falls as shown, that we'll have a balance of 1.1 million in our capital stabilization fund.
Gotcha. Yeah, and our floor is and Michelle and Chris is here too if he's still here. So for the roof savings, is that something that we need to turn back and then reallocate towards a different project, or if it's already in that bucket, can it just be rebucketed or redeployed without any emotions?
Go ahead, Chris. I think I was going to cut you off.
No, that's all right. It's going to be repurposed in the motion.
Okay. All right.
Gotcha. So I just wanted to show this just so that we sort of get comfortable that we've got an ending balance that's above the threshold that we sort of talk about, which I think sort of tees up the other conversation, Corey, that you had, which is, do we want to put a little cash against town hall, or do we want to appropriate the 4 million in debt?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm landing on this, which I'd rather spend now for things we know about. And that way we save capacity for future years. So if we've got $80,000, that gets us to the 1 million, and we can maintain our fiscal policy on the the floor of that fund. And if cash spent now is cheaper than debt taken on later and paid later, right? So I would much prefer grabbing a few bites of this project and paying for it out of cash this year, and having our total debt service be less. Then otherwise we just kind of roll over the money into next year and it doesn't really do anything for us except it gets some interest, but I think it's better deployed in a project.
Do we know what that delta would be in interest cost if we were to apply that cash?
I mean, we can math that, but I mean, it's
I mean, last year we had interest earned of 76,000 on, I mean, I don't know, it wasn't a single balance, but call it $1.5 million.
Yeah, I mean, it's right. If we're getting 4% and we're talking 100 grand here, I mean, so. I mean, unless there's a benefit to keeping more cash in the fund for something that appears next year, or if there's something else we want to pay out of this year. I think fundamentally, I kind of feel like if we have money, I don't feel the town should be a bank. If we have money, I feel like, we've collected it from the taxpayers. I feel like we should deploy it as efficiently as possible. So holding money unless we have a clear need, like in the school stabilization funds, where we know we need X amount of money, we are saving for that purpose. I think on a macro level, I'm of the opinion that we need to deploy the money that we have available to us.
So in terms of round numbers, Corey, are you thinking, 100,000? Because that would, if we're currently sitting at if we're currently estimating a balance of, 1.137, if we did cash of 100,000, that would take us down to $37,000 over our $1 million target.
Yeah, Michelle grabbed 3 projects for us. It was the remove wall AC units, some ADA modifications, and annex exterior doors, which totaled $80K.
Okay.
So what I would recommend us do is we would do 4 motions. We would do the or we do actually, well, it doesn't really matter, but we do effectively 2 motions, one for the cash spend for those 3 projects, and then one for the debt service.
And the reason you feel the need to sort of express the projects is that's typically what capital budget does, is fund specific projects instead of just funding 80 or
correct. For the clarity of the motion, rather than saying it's $100,000, $80,000, and then whatever. If we just declare what they're for, I mean, we've done that previously in previous years where we funded an elevator repair or a roof repair, right? Where there's a very specific tag for some money. I think if we're going to split this up into debt service and cash, it's just cleaner if we specify what the cash is for. That way we're not going backwards and trying to rethink what we did and why.
I guess my only thought process, Corey, is that like, if something comes in under that, then we're sort of, Chris or Michelle explained to me how fluidly that like $5,000 can be flown.
That's a great point. I mean, if it costs us less, we don't take the debt service on. But if it costs us less, we appropriate the money, then we might have to turn it back unless there's some language, Chris, where we can just redeploy to the project overall.
I'm sorry, I was listening to you, but I'm not
Sorry.
following the train here.
Sorry, Chris, what I'm suggesting is we have about $80,000 left before we hit our $1 million floor in FY26 appropriations.
Okay.
What I'm suggesting is if there's value to us taking that $80,000 and applying it as cash towards a town hall project to lower the debt service. And what the best way to do that would be, my suggestion was to just grab a piece of the project and just say, hey, we're going to pay for this out of cash rather than out of debt.
That's probably the easiest way to do it.
Okay.
Just so it's identified. Or you could just, authorize the bonding at 3,920 instead of 4, right? Something, and then have 80,000 in cash, Again, I don't know if there's that $80,000 chunk. I don't have the spreadsheet in front of me. I don't know if there's an 80,000.
Michelle's give us a chunk, yeah. So it's AC removals and infill, ADA upgrades, and exterior doors. We could wrap that up into one motion.
Okay.
And for those 3 projects.
That's fine. And again, I'm all in favor of, again, I want to borrow as little as possible. I want to also loan us. I mean, this money is now cash in hand. It's not like we have to borrow it from ourselves now. So that's good. I mean, it's a good fiscal way to handle it. So I agree with that.
Okay. Yeah. I'm just trying to, limit the impact for future years. So, yeah.
All good.
I mean, for those reasons, it makes sense, and it also makes sense because we weren't going to do the bonding until next year. And if something comes up where you need to actually expend some monies prior to that, you'll have some cash.
Yeah.
Cash is good.
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, well, I'm comfortable expending, splitting it into a slightly lower debt appropriation, trading that off for cash upfront on the barrelhead in fiscal 26. Whether it's 80 or $100,000, if it's 80,000 and we do it against those three projects, I'm comfortable with that.
Does anyone on the committee feel otherwise? Want to express anything? No? Are we ready for voting?
I think so.
Okay, then I will make a motion that the committee recommend an expenditure of $80,000 out of the FY26 capital stabilization fund in cash for the town hall project items, AC unit infill, ADA upgrades, and annex exterior doors.
I'll second.
Right? Roll call vote?
Corey Evans, aye.
Katie Dugan, aye.
Chris Peisch, aye.
Francine Lyons, aye.
Susan Franklin, aye.
Okay, and then what does that leave us for the town hall renovations? Katie just had that money in front of you, so we're going to do 3968 301 minus 80,000, not 80.
I get to 3,888,301. Somebody check me on that.
That's what I've got. 2368301 301 80,000. Yep, 3888301.
That's correct.
All right, then I would make a motion that the capital budget committee recommend a 10-year bond issuance of 3 million, not to exceed 3,888,301 for the purposes of town hall repair and renovation.
I'll second.
Roll call vote?
Corey Evans, aye.
Katie Dugan, aye.
Chris Peisch, aye.
Francine Lyons, aye.
Susan Franklin, aye.
Michelle, we like the form of the motions. Those were okay.
They're fine. Yep.
All right, Chris, you're moving towards, I don't want to jinx us, I won't even say it. Like, we
No.
still got town meeting.
I don't think my desk is real wood, so if you say it, I won't have any thing to knock on. So, all right, that's town hall. Please, Chris, Paul, I see Paul is on the call, but please send our vote to the select board and advisory. We are scheduled, it looks like, for advisory on Wednesday. So we look forward to communicating our positions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next thing is the fire truck. Fire truck, ambulance, my
Nice.
apologies, I'm ahead of us. So yeah, the thing that Michelle sent around smartly, I think whoever suggestion was a very good one, which is just we get some competitive bids for the same item. Michelle?
Corey, so Paul Grady has his hand raised. I don't know if you want to recognize.
Paul, do you really need us, or do you want to just
Well,
try to get us out of here?
Still has his hand raised, we'll,
Okay, wrote him.
Corey, I know what it's like trying to get out of a meeting. I'm just gonna say thanks. That's all.
Not-
Now I'm taking my hand down.
All right, get out of here. Thank you.
we'll take the thanks, though.
Okay, back to the ambulance. So, yeah, so the competitive bids, and Michelle, correct me if I'm wrong, what you did was send the bid that we got back in 2017, 2020, whatever it was, and send it to that vendor and just say, how much is it today? And that number came back at high.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. So I think the concern of the committee was, how could the price escalate to the level that it's at today? So that's why we performed that exercise to see if we bought the same exact vehicle that we purchased back in 2020, what would it cost today? And that was the price.
So
My only
like
cons-
the striker piece is 16,000 more in this quote than it was
Yeah.
in the other
Yeah.
one.
So
And
that
the,
actually,
It's 10,000 less. So, I mean, like, you know,
6 of one, half dozen the other, quite literally. Um,
Yeah.
Is there any concern? I mean, this is a really nebulous question, that what we approved today won't be enough money to actually buy the ambulance, Michelle. Are these quotes that we got good for right now, or are they?
They're good for right now. We fear that in 3 years, we don't know what will happen, but for the information that we have today, it's the best information we have. And the information that Chief Dockery gave, if you're to approve that quote, I think it's what he's looking for. And he's on if you want him to answer any questions.
Once they issue a purchase order, then it's a commitment regardless of the movement in the number is what you're getting at.
Great. Okay. I don't have any further questions on this. I feel like we spent we did spend 45 minutes on it the other day. It was a great conversation. I don't really have any other questions about how we use the ambulance or the costs or the striker. I feel like we flushed a lot of things out. So I myself don't have anything additional.
I don't know either.
yeah. No, I appreciate the second
It
quote.
is
It
what it
was,
is.
it was a good point that Ralph made. I think it's a disappointing answer, but, back to what we've said like 3 times now, it is what it is when it comes to this pricing and this duopoly right now.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I'd rather have an ambulance that picks me up and doesn't drop me next time I break my leg when I'm out running. So I will happily support a functioning ambulance. So, okay. So that being said, I will make a motion that the Capital Budget Committee recommend expenditures of $502,000 for the purchase of the ambulance as quoted
I'll second.
by Lifeline. Thank you.
Okay, roll call vote.
Corey Evans, aye.
Katie Dugan, aye.
Chris Peisch, aye.
Francine Lyons, I.
Susan Franklin, aye.
I did sneak something on the agenda at the last minute today. And that was to revote the roads and sidewalks number.
Okay.
We'd gone back and forth, and it looks like the appropriate number that needs to be voted is $700,000.
Okay.
So I just asked that we revote that number.
What was our initial vote? My apologies, I forget.
800.
800.
800.
Okay, so
Why is it
I
the
move-
lower, why is it the lower number, Michelle?
So. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Michelle.
Chris.
Oh, so the guidance we've currently received from the state is that you can only, at which I'm still trying to get them to fix, is that you can only allocate the money that's available in any given year in the year it's given. So in the first year, we had $800,000.
Uh-huh.
Last year, we allocated 100,000 plus another. We allocated 100,000 from the next year. So we authorized 9. The state said you can't do that. You have to. So we authorized the 100,000 extra as special. So technically, we only have 700,000 left this year, even though the select board's already authorized next year's 820,000. But at this point, the state is telling us,
okay.
So
Yeah.
I said, why is it any different than again? That's why. I'm
Okay.
Because it's-
hoping to get them to fix that interpretation, but that's where we stand right.
So we can appropriate spending against a future tax levy, but we can't appropriate spending against a future allocation against a stabilization fund.
In this particular, I mean, this is like a debt exclusion stabilization fund.
Okay,
right.
So you can for a regular stabilization fund because the money's in the bank, right? It's like the budget. In
yeah,
this case, I don't understand why it matters because once the select board authorizes, it's on the tax levy for the next year anyway. So I have not
Okay.
forced them to come back with an answer for me because we haven't been pressured yet on that. But when we come up to the Osgood School, if we may need to do that. So but that's a convoluted reason why. And Katie, I don't understand it either. I'm just telling
Okay.
you.
so it's just for debt exclusion stabilization funds.
Oh,
that-
correct.
this-
Because they're technically, the select board could turn them off, right?
Correct. I was going to say they could vote to turn them off, right?
So, but in this case, they've already voted to turn them on. They did it for 2 years worth.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
So.
But it doesn't affect us being able to take debt against those funds, correct? So we can't, we could take debt against future earnings, but we can't appropriate cash future
So
earnings.
the answer to that is yes, because the money's there in a future year, right? At least on a year-to-year basis, right? So,
Yeah, or it comes out of
but for a
general. Okay.
long-term debt, that's an answer. That's a question I have not gotten an answer to yet. But again, we're still, it's on my list to talk to the DOR about when we all have time again. So.
So we're
Then I
gonna
will
vote
move.
700,000 now, and then in the fall, you're gonna come forward and ask us to vote the other 100,000, so they're whole, is that right, Chris?
Yeah, or more, depending on what Brian's plan is. We may actually allocate money for the spring and have that
Okay.
available in the fall. So I think we're gonna be okay. We just got extra money. The state just gave us some of that extra, the millionaire tax. We got an extra chunk. We got a chunk of that, which was, I think, $80,000 or $90,000. So we do have a little extra money from the state this year.
Okay,
All right, then I'll move that we amend our previous motion for the transfer of money out of the roads and sidewalk stabilization fund from $800,000 to $700,000.
I'll second.
Roll call vote.
Corey Evans, aye.
Katie Dugan, aye.
Chris Fleisch, aye.
Francine Lyons, I.
Susan Franklin, aye.
All right, liaison updates, sidewalk and facilities.
Uh,
Dugan.
Yep, just a super quick update. I had a chance to listen to the school facilities committee meeting, and then also the roads and sidewalks committee. Schools and facilities, I did it just because I wanted to get an update on where we stood with the MASB and the Osgood roof, and we're still in the same holding pattern. So we've submitted all the materials ahead of the March deadline. We are still waiting on the project engineer, the OPM, to be assigned from MASB. And until that happens, we can't really move forward on any of the work in terms of the preliminary feasibility and engineering. So we're in that holding pattern. They're hopeful that that person will get assigned soon. But we can only move at this point in the project as fast as the MASB moves. And so we're still waiting. So hopefully when they have another meeting at the end of April or the end of May, I'll be able to get more information. But right now it's sort of stalled. But we'll hopefully speed up. The other thing that they mentioned is that on April 1st, they'll be resubmitting the core submission again for the middle high school renovation new building project. And they won't hear likely until December of next year. So again, we're resubmitting that as we've done 2 years in a row and gotten denied for submitting it for a third year. But that's the way these processes work. You have to keep on asking annually. So they've initiated that process. And then on the Roads and Sidewalks Committee, it was, a good conversation. They're obviously focused right now on the 2025 plan that we've voted on. Justin Pimpare, who is the chair of that, had on his on the agenda, school paving and school paving policy. He raised again the fact that, at least from his perspective as chair, that he feels like the Roads and Stabilizations Fund is maxed out in terms of its capacity right now, just implementing the 20-year plan. I did raise my hand and just indicate that, there are projects at the schools that are going to need to get funded that are significant, and that they are, used by as many town residents as the overall roads get used. I think they're open to the conversation, but about potentially chipping in on school-related projects. But I think it's going to come down to year in terms of like what their capacity is to support the 20-year plan. If they have extra money left over in any given year, could they kick it into a school paving project potentially? But I think we're going to have to engage them in that dialogue, I think early in the fall, so we don't get locked out in terms of like before they kind of commit to their roads plan. So it was a good conversation, but they're definitely focused on that 20-year plan as their first priority, with schools as sort of a secondary priority right now.
I may go to select board meeting and just give some comments on that, because again, if it's if it's a 20-year plan, can we make it into a 22-year plan that then includes schools, right? I mean, so if we're talking about $1 million to do, Deer Hill and Osgood, then that's 1 year of funding ish. So there's got to be, I think the select board, again, they charge the committee, and I think the select board would be the right committee, obviously, to integrate a new priority if there is one, because I think our message from this committee is there's really not going to be $700,000 sitting around against capital stabilization for us to chew one of these projects. And I do think that the school stabilization funds are also pretty well dedicated already to really high priority stuff. So I think they need to put that in their rubric.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it's the high usage area.
Yeah.
On the schools.
Yeah.
And so
Question.
my pitch at the end was like, I think we have to think about this like the CPC, like everybody has skin in the game, like
Right.
roads and sidewalks putting some skin in the game, is capital putting some skin in the game, is the school stabilization putting some skin in the game. And with that mentality, you could potentially start chunking off some of these projects. So, but I think it's been incumbent on the schools to really define those like 3 projects that they deferred and get some good pricing on them, and do that early in the cycle, because last year roads and sidewalks had already voted their plan by December, and we were just beginning conversations with the school. So I think that my takeaway is that we have to be a sort of ahead of the cycle a little bit when it comes to roads and sidewalks. But your conversation starter, Corey, with select board, I think is a good one too.
Sure. Great. All right. We don't have on the agenda minutes, so do we want to save minutes, or do you want to just roll minutes in anyway?
Just save them at this point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then that is it. I don't think we have anything not reasonably anticipated. So unless anybody else has everything, we are done for FY26. Nice job, everybody. This is I think we did a great job.
Yeah, we do a great job. Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
think Michelle and Chris, the only thing that I would ask is I would love to see a draft of the motion language related to the warrant article. I don't know, Chris, when that gets done, but I think as a committee, it'd be helpful for us to be able to meet and see that prior to seeing it being handed it at annual town meeting. So can you just
Great.
give an update on timing on when the motions would get done?
Sure. So town meeting is the 12th of May. So we have a little time, probably try to get these done in a couple of weeks, because I still have to wrap the warrant up, right? So
Right.
So I could probably circulate some draft language in a couple of weeks, which will give you weeks before the meeting. So
Yep. All right, please do.
Okay, thank you.
How's the town hall article coming, Chris?
we're gonna wrap that right into
Making
the
it
capital
random.
budget package. It's gonna be all one big fat article. So
Are you gonna
Yeah,
wrap it in, because right now it's a separate line item?
yeah, it's gonna be a separate line item, but it'll be in the whole capital approval. So
It should be. Yeah,
Yeah.
have it be part of the full roll. Yeah.
And then again, we'll include all of the recap, the repurposings.
Mhm.
Yep.
And I don't, I think Michelle's already scoured it pretty well. I don't know if there's anything else left out there, so.
So it's basically gonna have an A part, which is enterprise funds, a B part, which is general, and then a C part, which is the debt for town
Yeah.
hall. So, it's-
Probably something like
okay, something like that, okay.
that. Because I don't think there's anything else we have to redo, I don't think.
Not yet.
I mean, there's sometimes when we and it just happens sometimes where we've authorized the bond, we're not gonna use it, and we rescind the authorization. We don't have any of that quite now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you all for all your work on this.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so we'll hold on the minutes. How does, so advisory, Susan, Corey, Francine, how does that work? Do we all go? Do chair and vice chair go? How does the presentation to advisory happen on Wednesday?
Well, in the past, it's been the chair and vice chair.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
I'm good with that, Susan, if you are.
Yep.
All right, then we will go and deliver our messages.
And we just, and Michelle's already given them the first cut at it, which was like 95% of this. So we just have to update them with the last two pieces, but they've already gotten the town hall presentation. They already know.
Okay.
everything. So now that.
Michelle, can you send Susan and I the last form that you sent advisory, that way we're looking off the same version? Because we've got a bunch of notes here too, and I just want to be sure that we, we're all looking at the same thing.
Yep.
I'll talk to Michelle tomorrow. I'll get something, I'll do a memo advisory or something, just explaining where we are.
What we did. Yeah. Gotcha.
Right.
And then that means that select board will want to see capital on the 8th. Is that right, Chris?
That's the plan. That'll be wrapping it up, yeah.
And then you guys will vote everything and wrap up the warrant.
Well, as much as we're able to. I don't think advisory's gonna be able to wrap up the budget because school's not meeting on. The school committee's not meeting on the budget until the 2nd.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Sorry. For some reason, that's right. They're voting the fees tonight.
So they just
Correct.
voted kindergarten. That's, sorry, I just keep looking at my phone. They voted the
watching it.
kindergarten. Yeah, okay. They
did.
did vote the kindergarten fee so far.
Oh, they did?
Yep.
Okay.
It was through two.
Okay.
Well, that's a big step actually towards a balanced budget, so that's good to hear.
Okay. All right.
Well,
All right, motion to make a motion to adjourn. 7:44.
I'll second.
All right.
Oh,
Corey Evans, aye.
Katie Dugan, aye.
Chris Peisch, aye.
Francine Lyons, I.
Susan Franklin, I.
Thanks, guys.
All right, good night.
You.
All right.
Good
Thank
night.
you,
Good
everybody.
night.
See you Wednesday, Corey.
Yep.